Hello one and all, welcome back to the channel where we discuss all things second citizenship and residency by investment. My name is Jonathan and today I'll be taking you through the journey towards Portuguese citizenship using the Golden Visa and the associated costs for this process. If you are new here, I'm one of the leading Golden Visa consultants working in the world today, and I'm backed by an incredible team with a stellar track record in this space. More on us, more on myself a little bit later on once we've covered the key basis of today's topic. We will be starting today's session with a quick recap on the basic background. So what is the Golden Visa? What is the journey to citizenship from there? We will then dive into the meat of today's session, running through the associated fees involved with the Golden Visa. So what are they? How much are they? When are they chargeable? Next, we will then explore how to assess these costs against the return on investment from the investment that's being used to underpin the Golden Visa. And this is, of course, very important to ensure that the journey on to citizenship is indeed a profitable one, or at the very least, one that gives you the value for money that you would be looking for. Thereafter, we'll move on to the citizenship piece. Again, so what are the fees involved? How much are they? When are they paid? We'll then begin to wrap up today's session by recapping the value of a European citizenship, so looking at the benefits that this brings and the key factors that you may wish to consider before embarking upon this particular journey, which will then lead us naturally on to an answer to the question, is all of this worth it? And if the answer is yes, then I will be pointing you in the direction of some helpful materials that can get you started on your own Golden Visa journey. So, quick recap on the Golden Visa then to get us started. Now, some of you watching this video may have seen this slide before. Some of you may even be sick of it. If that's the case, please feel free to skip ahead. But for those of you who are not aware, let me just break down the key basics. So the Golden Visa was introduced in 2012, has since proven extremely popular as it is the most accessible route to obtaining a European passport from the comfort of home. You do not need to relocate to Portugal, and yet you can still obtain citizenship. It is now the only country in Europe that offers this now that the Maltese program has closed, and Portugal is seen by many as the gateway to becoming European in 2025. The Golden Visa is an investment visa wherein you receive a residency permit in Portugal in return for a substantial investment. That is usually 500,000 euros. Occasionally it is less than that. That being said, there are ways to do this for using innovative structures. You can reduce the investment amount to access the Golden Visa. Like I say, that does need a little bit of creativity. I discussed this in some detail in the other videos on this channel, so feel free to take a little bit of a look around. You may also wish to subscribe for future updates as well. The Golden Visa has proven to be a very popular scheme, with around 30,000 people now having received their Golden Visa, and the annual case numbers are increasing pretty much year over year. You can include almost all of your immediate family as well, so parents and dependent children. The one outlier for that, the one exception, are siblings. Unless you have a legal guardianship, they generally speaking cannot be included. Now, our team, and of course myself, we are here to advise you if you're unsure about your family member's eligibility. Note that you must also have a clean criminal record in order to apply. The Portugal Golden Visa is a proven and legally viable pathway to citizenship now, even without living in Portugal. We know this because citizenships are being granted to Golden Visa holders that meet the requirements. They have been since 2018 now. And that even includes those that have not been living in Portugal and are not tax residents there. One bullet point here that I did just skip over very quickly is there is a physical stay requirement. So you cannot do this completely from the comfort of home. You do need to actually physically come to Portugal for a minimum of 1 week per year. But let's be frank here, if you can't meet a 1 week per year physical stay requirement, it's very unlikely that you have sufficient ties to the country to justify a citizenship. So in this world of dual citizenships, that is frankly the bare minimum. You will be quite interested to know, if you're not already aware, that my team and I have now managed over 10% of all of the Portugal Golden Visas ever issued, so we have seen it all before. Here, we've navigated all the various iterations of the program as well, with our 100% track record for the Golden Visa intact. So if you work with us, you are working with a tried, tested, proven market leader, and once again, I like to think that we know what we're talking about. So then, what are the costs involved with the Portugal Golden Visa? Well, the first consideration are the legal fees. These are payable to your lawyer and or Golden Visa agent in exchange for them processing your case. The level of fee charged can vary and is often dependent on the amount of support that's being given to you. Now, a lawyer submitting a Golden Visa application and then simply walking away is not the same level of service as an end-to-end agent that will commit to supporting and guiding you all the way through to citizenship, for example. And of course, there will be levels of service in between those two extremes. Next one to consider is tax representation. So this is essentially a go-between between you and the Portuguese tax authorities, finanças. Previously, this was a legal obligation for all residents, but the law has recently become more flexible in this regard. So expect this to run to between 150 and 300 euros per adult person. Minor children are exempted from this particular cost line. Next, if we are submitting a Golden Visa application, there are going to be documents required for this. I'm sure that comes as no surprise. These documents will need to be duly legalized for use in Portugal and given what's called an apostille. Now, this is payable to a notary in your current country of residence. You can expect the total cost to run anywhere between 500 euros and 1,000 euros per application. Per application, I mean per family making the application. And this could be more if documents are not already in English, Spanish, Portuguese, or French, because these documents will, of course, require an official translation as well. Those four languages now no longer requiring translation to Portugal. Portuguese, I rather should say those three languages, seeing as I included Portuguese in that, but English, French, and Spanish documents now no longer require translation to Portuguese to be used for the Golden Visa. However, if they come from outside Portugal, they will need that apostille in order to be used in the country. Now, a quick sidebar here, all of the figures that I'm placing on the screen here, these are just approximations. They can vary. The government fees that I'm listing, which are coming now, they are correct as at the time of recording, but everything that you see here is purely for orientation purposes. And like I say, correct at time of recording, but may change in the future. The investment is, of course, the largest cost involved in this entire process. It is rather self-explanatory, I like to think. You're likely already aware that this will be somewhere between 250 and 500,000 euros. Moving on to the government fees now, as I mentioned, these separate out into two categories. So the first are the application fees, here, which you can see on your screen, which are payable in order for government officials to process your application. At time of recording, that is 606 euros per person, regardless of age. So a 1-year-old child or a 35-year-old adult or an 80-year-old adult will all pay the same amount on a per-person basis. And finally, Golden Visa card fees, which are the success fee payable once again to the government authorities after you have been given pre-approval on your application. These are a little bit steeper. So these work out to 6,046 euros per person. Once again, independent of age, and once again, correct as at the time of recording right here in May 2025. Okay, so those are the fees. Let's look very quickly now at process and how these costs actually fit in to that. So just to recap the process for those of you that are not already au fait with what to expect, well, we will get started by selecting an investment, then performing the background checks on you and your family, whoever's involved in this process, and then signing our client agreement together. After that, we would obtain your tax numbers, open the bank account in Portugal for you, then begin preparing the requisite paperwork for the Golden Visa application itself. All of this is done remotely online from the comfort of home. We will use some Zoom meetings or Google Meet, the like, where required. Once that's been done, we will then complete the investment paperwork. That will be done using witnessed Zoom calls or equivalent. We'll then request that you begin moving funds over to your Portuguese bank account so that we can then complete the investment itself. Now, all of this will take us roughly to the 3-month mark, although for some investments, this can be reached sooner. But once we are here, we are then ready to submit the application. Now, once that is in, you will receive your, once the application has been submitted, that's what I mean when I say once this is in, you will receive your ARI number. So ARI stands for Autorização de Residência para Atividade de Investimento. Again, still working on my Portuguese pronunciation. So for those of you native speakers, please forgive my butchering on a regular basis of your wonderful language. But that, the ARI, is essentially just the technical term for the golden visa. Now, this is a key milestone in this process because once your application has been submitted, once we've obtained your ARI number, you are then officially in the system. And it's at this point that you will have grandfather rights to the program if the law changes at any subsequent date. This is also now when the 5-year clock towards citizenship will begin ticking. From here, it is just a matter of time before we have everything sorted and get your cards issued. Necessary part of this is inviting you to come over to Portugal for the biometric appointment. Now, this is the first and only time in the entire process that we actually need you to be physically present in Portugal, and it takes place around about a year into the process, give or take. We cannot be exact on this, as it will depend on when the authorities are able to process your application. Remember, you will have 30 to 90 days notice ahead of the appointment, however, so do not book any travel until you've been given notice of that appointment. And the government fees will need to be paid at this juncture because essentially you've now been given pre-approval. So the Golden Visa card fees, the bulk of the government fees that I mentioned on the previous slide, will now become due. Once that's been settled, once the biometrics have been performed, we will then take care of the rest. You're free to go on your merry way. And then once the cards have been printed and issued, we will have them couriered over to your home address, wherever in the world that may be. And that will bring us to around about an even 18 months for this entire process, and you'll be well on your way to achieving your dual nationality. Remember, the clock towards citizenship eligibility will begin at around the 3-month mark once we have submitted your application and obtained your ARI number, which is why I've highlighted it in blue on the slide there. Now, circling back to the fees then. So the legal fees will be due at the outset of this process. Fairly straightforward. Tax representation and document costs will, of course, be during the application setup phase, when we are getting your tax numbers, when we are getting the document pack, the application dossier together, once we're preparing everything. The investment will then come thereafter, once we're ready to actually move forward, once we have the bank account set up, ready to receive funds, once the documents are in order, that's when the investment will take place. Then, of course, application fees once the investment's been made and once we are actually submitting the application itself. And then Golden Visa card fees, as I've just mentioned, are payable around about a year into this process once you have achieved pre-approval and have been called for biometrics. Costs involved in the Portugal Golden Visa, therefore, can be rather significant, let's be frank. So that can make this process undeniably a rather expensive one, and that's particularly the case if you have a large family because the government fees are on a per-person basis. Now, as I've mentioned, the main factor here, the investment notwithstanding, the main culprit for the fact that the Golden Visa is an expensive one here in Portugal is that the government fees can be significant. They are rather higher than most other countries in this space. The reason for that is because the Golden Visa program in Portugal is a very popular one, and quite frankly, the authorities know that they can charge this. The fees used to be significantly cheaper, but the fact that Portugal is now unrivaled in its ability to give you a European citizenship remotely means that the authorities can now boost up those fees. So I'm afraid it is something that you just have to accept if you would like to come on this journey to European citizenship. Note as well that some investments may carry expensive fee structures. This is particularly true in the investment fund space. We haven't mentioned this up to now, but just be very, very careful when you're selecting your investment. Some investments in the market can be markedly more expensive than others. The variability of legal fees and the service provisions that you can expect to receive in return are also something to bear in mind. So when we are evaluating whether the Gold Visa program represents value for money to you, I'd like you to just ask yourself the question, what is the real value of this citizenship to me? What's the purpose of this journey, and how much value am I perceiving as a result? Now, oftentimes, a Gold Visa investor may choose to see the European passport as the true return on investment for them, rather than trying to generate huge returns from the investment component. Now, this is particularly true for the more cautiously minded investors among you, who may be better served prioritizing more secured investments, for example, or prioritizing investments that favor a capital preservation strategy. More aggressive investors, on the other hand, will need to understand that high returns in this space often can require a disproportionately high level of risk to be assumed in order to achieve them. So the approach that you take to your investment journey should be very carefully considered. As a result, it is often beneficial to separate the Golden Visa from your wider wealth generation or retirement strategy. Yes, this is an investment, but the primary aim of the Golden Visa, for the most part, for the majority of the cases at least that I have dealt with within my not insignificant personal experience, the main aim tends to be to obtain a citizenship at the end of this journey and obtain the global mobility benefits that come with it. Now, the wealth generation element is usually best left to non-Golden Visa investments, to avoid confusing the objectives from this journey and to avoid overstretching your resources with what can be a rather limited investment landscape, certainly when we compare it to global investment opportunities without restrictions such as Golden Visa qualification criteria. Now, for these reasons that we've just mentioned, it's often advantageous as well to try to limit the amount of capital that you deploy when selecting your Golden Visa investment. Because by doing that, you can minimize the potential for any opportunity cost. So if we minimize the amount of capital we're deploying for the Golden Visa, therefore we maximize the amount of capital that we can deploy in other wealth generating initiatives elsewhere. Again, this is a topic that I do cover rather extensively in some of the other videos on this channel, so feel free to subscribe. Please, of course, like the video to give it a nice little boost for the algorithm, but do have a little look around as well to see what other content is on this channel for a little bit of a deeper dive onto that particular topic. I promise I will not plug this channel much more in the remainder of this video. Anyway, moving on. Of course, getting the Golden Visa is usually only half the battle when we're talking about the wider piece, because this video and for the most part, this journey is about citizenship. So what is the total cost for the citizenship journey? And before we broach that particular issue, let's have a quick look at the background for how to convert the Golden Visa on to citizenship. Now, the first key item here that we need to reference is precedent. So, citizenships have been granted, as I mentioned at the top of the show, to Golden Visa holders since 2018. This is therefore not new ground that we are treading here. It is a demonstrably effective process. The requirements are 5 years of continuous legal residence, which essentially means making the Golden Visa investment and then retaining it for 5 years, while staying in Portugal, as mentioned, for an average of at least 1 week per year, and demonstrating sufficient ties to Portugal as well. Now, what that means in practice is essentially passing a language test. Now, that's known as the CIPLA, which is at A2 standard, which is essentially one step on from beginner. Or alternatively, a more popular route these days is attending a sufficient language course, which can even be done online if exams are a problem for you. We particularly see this with families with children who want to use this as a family bonding exercise and really build that buy-in from the kids towards Portugal. Taking a language course online together can really help with that. We also recommend reinforcing your ties to Portugal a little bit further, just for a more robust citizenship application. You can do that by joining Portuguese focused clubs, for for example, or regularly attending cultural events to show your genuine interest in the country. That can be food festivals, that can be sporting events that involve Portuguese teams, for example, or other associated events, just to give you a flavor. But these are not, this is not a legal requirement. This is simply a recommendation that we give just to make sure that your ties to Portugal are rather robust at time of application for citizenship. A major recent development, which we have already touched on, is that the timeline for citizenship eligibility now begins on the date of your golden visa application submission and not the date of receipt of your residence cards, which now comes a little bit later. So this development can save you a significant amount of time, up to about 18 months on the journey to citizenship. So very, very good news there. And note that a golden visa, once issued, is valid for a 2-year period. Actually, to avoid confusing, I'm going to take that last point back off. Golden visas are valid for a 2-year period once issued. Golden visas must therefore be renewed periodically before we can ultimately then apply for citizenship. There are some government fees involved for that renewal, but that will depend on the then current rate that's being charged. It has varied quite significantly in recent years. So do watch that space to make sure you're fully up to date. And then after the 5-year qualification period for citizenship, once we are ready to then make the application for that citizenship, we will, of course, apply. Now, a citizenship application usually takes anywhere from 6 to 24 months to go through. Therefore, it is reasonable to assume a total timeline to citizenship of around 7 years from the start of your golden visa journey. Okay. Let's take a quick look now at how this process breaks down from a practical standpoint and just examine some milestones. Firstly, as mentioned a couple of times now, the clock will start ticking from the date that we make the initial application. The investment is made from your Portuguese bank account. We then get your ARI number, your golden visa case number. We will then invite you to come to Portugal for biometrics, get the residence cards printed and sent out to you. This will take us to about 18 months. The cards, once received, are then valid for 2 years. So after that time, we will then need to renew them. The renewed card will be valid for another 2 years, and you will need to meet the ongoing criteria to do so. Now, this is significant. Why? Because in terms of timeframes, this will now bring us to a total of more than 5 years, at which point we are able to apply for the citizenship. We're eligible, and we're also eligible to convert to a permanent residency as well. Now, under the previous rules, we needed to renew the golden visa twice to get to this stage, and renewing the cards does come with government fees and lawyer fees, and only having to renew once could save a golden visa investor some time and money with that regard. However, it's not immediately clear whether one renewal or whether 2 renewals will become the new baseline and industry standard. So I do recommend that you plan and budget for a second renewal just in case that is required, because it may be the case. But that being said, if processing time continues to be a little bit inflated at around the 18-month mark, then it may be eminently possible that we can achieve citizenship with just one renewal of the golden visa. Time will tell. Remember, we can only apply for citizenship once you've passed the CEPLA language test or once you've completed the online language course. Now, both of these take as their minimum benchmark requirement A2 level. Now, it's not a high level, but everyone that wants citizenship will need to either pass that language test or take that language course and see it through to its completion. A language course, incidentally, will have a minimum 150 hours of tuition to achieve your certification that can be required for the citizenship application. If you decide to go for the test, you can take the test as many times as you like during the 5 years before we apply for citizenship. You can even fail it as many times as you need to get there. But we will need that box ticking, either the course or the test, before the application for citizenship can be made. Now, as I mentioned, that applies to everyone looking for citizenship, not just the main applicant on the golden visa. And after the citizenship application has been approved, once we have your passports in hand, that's when we should be looking to unwind the investment and then return the capital to you, or follow whichever exit strategy we have designed together. And that will, of course, vary from investment to investment. Okay, stepping a little bit back for a second then. Why is Portuguese citizenship now such an important objective for so many people? Well, if you're watching this video, it might be because you're already quite well aware, but let's quickly recap the fundamentals. Firstly, Portugal allows dual citizenship. This is not always the case in Europe. For example, Spain would make you renounce your current citizenship before giving you a Spanish nationality, unless you come from an ex-Spanish colony, in which case you do have special privileges. Portugal, on the other hand, no qualms about allowing you to be a full dual national, provided, of course, that your home country allows that as well. A Portuguese passport does convey a great deal of freedoms onto its holder. It allows you the freedom to live, work, study, retire, open a business in any one of 27 countries across the European Union, not just Portugal, and all that visa-free with no restrictions. It also gives you visa-free travel to more than 180 countries around the world. Important point. Getting Portuguese citizenship will also enable you to access banking facilities and potentially even business opportunities that are unavailable to those of you outside of the European Union. Of course, getting a citizenship will allow you to access the common market, and getting a Portuguese citizenship does not change your tax position in any way either. You will only have tax obligations in Portugal on your Portuguese assets and Portuguese source income unless you decide to become tax resident. So your worldwide income and assets will not be taxed by Portugal unless you become a tax resident in the country. Now, that in and of itself is a rather complicated topic, but that usually can be boiled down to living in the country, having a place of residence, and oftentimes spending more than 6 months per calendar year in the country. Now, a Portuguese citizenship is also a fantastic gift for the rest of the family as well, as it can be passed down to future generations, giving them essentially all of the freedoms that we've just outlined. It is a fantastic investment into your quality of life, but also into the future quality of life of your children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, and beyond, so on and so on and so on, down the family tree. And truly, it can leave a wonderful legacy for the rest of the family once you are no longer around. Now, bear in mind, everything that we have just spoken about is the case for all European citizenships. So all passports issued by the countries that you can see on the right-hand side of your screen there convey the same benefits to their holders. Portugal just happens to be the most accessible, given the favorable terms being offered by its golden visa and the fact that you do not need to live in the country in order to then obtain the citizenship later on. So, a Portuguese citizenship is therefore extremely valuable if you're not already European. So, what about the fees to obtain it? These can usually be broken down into two distinct areas. So firstly, government fees at €250 per person. Of course, that depends at the time of application for citizenship. And lawyer fees, which will depend on the lawyer in question, but they will usually average out to a ballpark figure of around €750 per applicant. Now, as we've mentioned previously, once Portuguese citizenship has been obtained, it does not generate additional tax obligations for you. Portugal does not operate worldwide taxation on the basis of citizenship, like, for example, the United States of America does. And if you do not choose to live in the country, then only your Portuguese source income and capital gains will be chargeable to Portuguese tax. Of course, when I say if you do not choose to live in the country, I, of course, to be more specific, mean if you do not take tax residence in Portugal. Now, when it comes to passport renewals, which occur every 10 years, this is also straightforward for Portugal. If you do not, and you do not need to maintain any physical presence in the country either to renew a passport. So then, by this point, you should have a fairly solid understanding of the Golden Visa, the process to obtain it in 2025, the pathway to dual citizenship that is offered this year. Remains to be seen if 2026 and beyond the process and the qualification criteria will remain the same. You should also have a fairly decent understanding of the costs involved. Now, that is the point of this video, so hopefully I've done a fairly decent job of communicating that. But if you're not aware of further details for the Portuguese Golden Visa program, it may be wise just to fill in those blanks before you get started on a journey. And that would, of course, mean understanding the investment options at your disposal. Making the investment is also a key part of the Golden Visa process. Getting that right is fairly critical to a successful and satisfactory journey. So, a word to the wise. The world of international investments can be confusing. It can be sometimes downright intimidating, especially if you're a rather inexperienced investor. There are many factors to consider before making a decision, so I've turned this into its own dedicated presentation to try to give the subject justice. It is my own video. I am, of course, biased. I said I wouldn't plug this channel too much in the remainder of the video. I will try not to, but I do believe that the video that's on your screen now is essential viewing for anyone that's contemplating investing into a Portuguese Golden Visa investment. In this video, which by the way I've linked to in the top right-hand corner of the screen and also in the description box down below my head, standard practice for the channel. But in that video, we will take a deeper dive. We will do a deeper dive. We will take a deeper look, I should say, at the key issues of risk involved in the Portugal Golden Visa, the types of investment that are available for the PGV, the Portugal Golden Visa, and how to make sure that you choose the right one for your circumstances, needs, and investor profile. The right decision as regards the investment can be the difference between a life-changingly positive experience or a poor decision that can lock you into something inappropriate and end up costing you financially in the long run. So make sure that you understand all of the factors at play. Do yourself a favor, go and watch this video next. As I say, there's a link in the top right-hand corner of your screen and also in the description box down below me here. Okay, wrapping up. Quick reminder about who we are, who I am. My name is Jonathan Ralph. Hello again. I'm a partner at Holborn Assets. Holborn is one of the leading expat wealth management firms operating in the world today. It's been going since 1998. I have not been with the company since 1998. However, I have been here for a good few years. A wonderful place to work. We look after more than 20,000 clients across more than 100 different countries now. That's our wealth management division, by the way. And even though the majority of our work is done online, we do offer our services out of more than 20 physical offices around the world now, spanning several continents. We have hundreds of highly qualified wealth management personnel on staff. I include myself in that. And we are the #1 Golden Visa agent working in Portugal today based on case volume. Our team has processed more than 1,000 Golden Visa applications now. We do still maintain a 100% track record of success as it pertains to the Golden Visa. And we are, at least for now, still rated excellent on Trustpilot. I would urge anyone considering working with us, do check us out on there. Read some real stories from some real clients. Just build a little bit of familiarity with us as a brand. Knowledge is power, so I would encourage you to go and do that. You can also run a filter on my name, so you can understand what real clients are saying about me, my team, and the service levels that we provide. Now, just a little bit about myself. So I am a partner at the firm. I'm responsible for the Western Mediterranean region, which means I divide my time up between Portugal and Spain. I was also recently named our top residency and citizenship by investment advisor for 2024 last year. Something I'm extremely proud of. I'll try not to mention it too much, but I'm trying to give myself a little bit of credibility for those of you that haven't met me already. But with that being said, and before ego gets too large, I do have to say that a large part of that, the majority of that, is down to the fantastic team that I have behind me. You will never see them on this channel, but they are a big part of what we do. And that team, alongside myself, we have helped an awful lot of people at this point to secure their Portuguese residency. So if you would like to potentially be part of that and be another one of our success stories, the first thing to do is get in touch, and you can do that in a number of ways. Easiest way is to book in a time to speak. You can do that using the QR code that's on your screen there. Once again, I will put a link in the description box down below, which essentially is the same link as the QR code. Both of those will take you directly to my calendar, where you can book in a free consultation with yours truly. It will be with myself, so we can get straight to the heart of the matter. I was actually recently accused of being AI generated the other day, which was a first, but it will be myself. It will most likely be the same surroundings. If you do book in a one-to-one, it'd be my pleasure to see you there. Or if you're not ready to book in a meeting just yet, you can just pop me an email instead, which is using jonathan.ralph@holbornassets.com, which is on your screen there, and I will keep it up on the screen as we close out today's video, because that is all for today. I hope this has given you a greater understanding of the scope of the Portugal Golden Visa, the costs required, and the journey onward to citizenship. I hope you found this useful. As always, thank you very much for joining me today and giving me your time on this wonderful day. Remember, as mentioned, we are the #1 agent in Portugal as regards the golden visa. I like to think there is good reason for that. We also have access to exclusive investment cases that you will not find anywhere else. We are investment managers by trade, so this is a significant value add that we bring to the table. I would strongly advise, therefore, speaking to us, myself, someone on our team before you move forward with any investment. You might just be surprised at what can be done for you. So, as I say, to book into my calendar, use the QR code that's on your screen there, or the link in the description box below, down below my head. As always, thank you very much for watching and spending some time with me here today. Have a beautiful rest of your day, wherever you are in the world. Take care of yourselves, and we will speak again very soon. Bye for now.